Greetings, Andy here again. And today we're doing a video on albums that turn 50 this year, or otherwise known as Still Fabulous at 50. So I got this sort of idea to decide to do this when I was preparing for the vinyl tag, where I was trying to work out what my favourite album from 1975 was. And whilst I got two or three possibles in my mind, I realised just what a good year it is, and I thought, right, I'm going to do 10 favourite albums, and then of course I thought, I can't leave that one out, and I went to 12, and anyway I've ended up at 15, so I'll whiz through them. There's a lot here. 75, and this was a pretty pivotal year for me. Not only is it a good year in music, but I turned 18 fairly early on, early February. In 75, so I sort of left school, did finish my A-levels, left school, went to university, and you know, it was at that time of change which which everyone seems to go through when they're 18. So this is very much a soundtrack to that period for me. I didn't have all of these albums then, some I bought sort of later. There's a bit of everything in here. There's lots of rock. But lots of different, I've written some ideas. We've got blues rock, art rock, proper art rock, krautrock, though it's not really. Lots of, a fair bit of heavy rock, and lots of prog rock, of course. And there's even some really good pop. But let's start. Now, I'm not doing a countdown here, but they are vaguely in order. So I'm starting with probably what is one of my favourite ones, and then working slightly backwards. And as I said in my vinyl tag, my favourite album of 1975 is Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. It doesn't take much to tell, everyone knows it. Beautiful, Shine On You Crazy Diamond, about Syd Barrett, the magnificent title track. I actually saw them in 1974, where they were obviously between Dark Side of the Moon and this one, and they showcased the early on working of Shine On You Crazy Diamond in that. So I'd already heard it live before I got it on here. I think on balance, this is my favourite Floyd album, but it's so close. Second favourite album of the year, I mentioned art rock, and the band to me that is the epitome of art rock is 10cc, and this is my favourite album of theirs, the original soundtrack, some great tracks. Their third album, Eric Stewart and Graham Goldman were sort of one writing pair, and Lowell Cream and Kevin Godley, the other writing team, but they all mixed together, great vocals, and as I say, it's got the Nuit à Paris, apologies for my pronunciation, Life is a Minestrone, great pop song, and the magnificent, of course, I'm Not in Love. So number three, Queen, A Night at the Opera, and again, this is my favourite Queen album. I know it's not everyone's, people prefer a couple of the earlier ones, but this is my favourite. It's really all killer, but just some stunning standouts as well. I mean, including You've Got a Friend, Love of My Life, beautiful song, and of course, Bohemian Rhapsody. It might be bonkers, but it's also brilliant. Number four, Elton John, and Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. This sort of ties as my favourite John album, along with Yellow Brick Road, of course. And there's the writing pair, Elton and Bernie, and the band, and brilliant. Seeing these two here, Nigel Olsson and oh God, I forgot his name. Stupid. Ray Cooper, brilliant percussion. The two together. The percussion on this album is brilliant, and it has undoubtedly my favourite Elton John track of all, which is Someone Saved My Life Tonight. All 6.5 minutes of it is absolutely brilliant. So now we come to some rock, having had a bit of pop, and Led Zeppelin and Physical Graffiti. double album. This is a lot of people's favourite album. I wouldn't say it's my favourite, but I'm very fond of it. And it does have possibly my favourite track, Zeppelin track in Kashmir. I think that is superb. Just an all-round brilliant album. Now, coming at number 6, an album or an artist which I suspect few people will know, and even fewer will have a record of him. And I'm talking about Murray Head and Say It Ain't So, Joe. Now, when this came out, and this was his second album, he was probably better known then as an actor. So he was actually appeared in quite a lot of films towards the end of the 60s and early 70s. But after this, I think he concentrated more in music and went on to produce loads of albums. And, you know, this is an album I bought at the time. I loved it. I still play it quite a lot. It's got some great tracks on it. Say It Ain't So, Joe, you know, famous one. Someone's Rocking My Dreamboat. You know, these were singles which hit the charts, but it's not a poppy album. It's a really, really good album. When I was just sort of like preparing for this, I discovered not only that he's produced, you know, since this tens and tens of albums, but he's got a live version of this, which only just came out in 2024. And yes, I'm a man of very little willpower, so it will be on its way soon. And some more art. Is it prog? I think this is more art rock than prog, to be honest. And I'm talking about Supertramp and their album Crisis, What Crisis. And you know, I love the artwork on this. You know, with all the pollution and pretending nothing's going on. If that was on an album today, 50 years later, it would still be appropriate. Let's face it. It's forgotten the name. Roger Hodgson and Richard Davies, of course. I would call this, you know, compared to some of their other albums, a complete album. There's not any track on it which I would describe as a real standout, but it's end to end. And of course, with Hodgson and Davies have a different style, and even though often they're jointly credited with writing, they're each individual writers really, and their style, you can tell who's doing the lead singing and who actually wrote the song, but they go together so well. Great band. Number 8, back to some prog, and we've got Camel and the Snow Goose. So, you know, Camel led by Andy Latimer, great guitarist. This is their third album, and it's a concept album about the novella of the Snow Goose, which was written by Paul Gallico. That's right, which is you know, its subtitles a story about Dunkirk, but it's not necessarily, you know, all the stuff that is going on the beaches. You know, just a great album. It's obviously a concept about that. It's quite symphonic in style. It's got some great orchestration by David Bedford, who's you know, obviously a brilliant arranger. So still in the world of prog, but entirely different to that one. And I'm talking about Steve Hillage. And his debut solo album, obviously we've been in Gong before this, of Fish Rising. It's a sort of strange structure really. So side A is each side has a title. So side A is titled, just looking at my notes, Inglid / Involution, and basically features one sort of suite, which is called the Solar Music Suite, with music spelt with a CK at the end instead of a C. Side B is titled Outglid / Evolution, and features two suites, the Salmon Song and Afterglid. Now, I don't know what all this glid business means. It's totally bonkers, but the guitar on here is absolutely superb. So that's Steve Hillage, my number 9. At number 10, I've got Jethro Tull and Minstrel in the Gallery. So not my favourite Tull album, but it's still really good. I mean, you know, I love Tull, so you know, it's not going to be at my number one, but it's good enough to be in my top 10 of a whole year. And somewhat bizarrely, I think this is, I didn't buy it in 75, I bought it a little bit afterwards, and but I think this is an original, and it's sort of slightly back to front. It's sort of, the back is printed upside down. I'm sure that was deliberate. Coming at number 11, Tangerine Dream and Rubicon. So, you know, I mentioned slightly tongue-in-cheek krautrock just to get the rock. It's not really krautrock, it's ambient, isn't it? It's obviously electronic. And this is my favourite album of theirs. It's stuck together. It's great. The photography is great. It's so, you know, they're a trio. Edgar Froese, of course, leads it, Chris Frank and Peter Baumann, and the artwork and the photography is by Froese's, Edgar's missus, Monique. It's one which is basically one track through the whole one, but part one on side A and part two on side B. Now we are up to my number 12, and some more heavy rock. This is a box set, and it's Sabotage by Black Sabbath, and this is their 6th album, and out of those 6, this is probably my least favourite, but I still like it enough to have got a box set, which was, I only bought this a couple of years ago, and from Amazon, and Amazon seemed to have dumped the price at the time. It was really good value. In fact, I saw it last year, a used one, which didn't look in that good condition, in a record store, for about £50 less than I paid for a completely new sealed one. It's got four LPs on it and one 7-inch single, and basically LP1 is a remaster of the original. And then the other 3 LPs are all live recordings from their North American tour in 1975. So it's got stuff from here, but also the earlier one. So, you know, it's because it's the 6th one, it's a great live, you know, in effect, it's a triple live plus the original. But the triple live obviously covers them right from their first 6 albums. So it's brilliant. Put that there. Back to some prog, and number 13, and it's Steve Hackett and Voyage of the Acolyte. So Steve Hackett, of course, guitarist with Genesis, and still was at that time. This is his debut solo record. As Steve has done a lot subsequently, it's a concept album. It's all sort of about mysticals and stuff like that. It's not my favourite of his, but it's a very, very good record, particularly for a debut. The standout track to me is called Shadow of the, I don't even know how to pronounce it, it's the Hierophant or Hierophant, which is the final track. And I thought, I looked it up. What's a Hierophant? And you can tell it's all about mystics, because according to Wikipedia, so it must be right, a Hierophant is a person who brings religious congregants into the presence of that which is deemed holy. It's also, the Hierophant is one of the tarot cards, apparently. So there you go. We learn something every day. Number 14, Mike Oldfield and Ommadawn. So this is his 3rd album after Tubular Bells and Hergest Risk. I love this album, but not quite as much as the previous 2, but it's still a really good album, and a bit like the Rubicon one, it's essentially one track across the across the whole album, but split into part 1 on side A and part 2 on side B. So it's Mike Oldfield. Enough said. And finally, last but not least, is out of all these, is the one I've actually bought most recently, because I sort of wasn't really into them at the time. One I picked up, I don't know, I think it might be an original, a UK original. It's certainly, you know, certainly around the time of issue, if it's not first. And that is ZZ Top and Fandango, which is their fourth studio album, single LP. And the first side, you can't see all the tracks on there, is essentially a live recording of stuff. And side two is a studio recording of new output. And it's just really good blues rock. It shows how good they were, you know, back then. I think I was put off them in the early 80s when they started producing essentially pop, not very good pop to me. But, you know, this is just out and out good quality blues rock. So that's my 15 albums turning 50. I'm going to do another of these of important anniversaries, if you like, in 2025. So I've looked them all up already. It's going to be 18, another whiz through, but I'm going to go 6 from 1985. I'm choosing 6 there because they're the only 6 I've got, but they're all crackers because I wasn't buying much in 1985. And then 1995, another 6. And of course, you can't ignore the silver anniversary, 25 years, which of course is 2000. So I'm going to do another 6 from 2000. Now, obviously 95 and 2000, actually I've got way more CDs than I have vinyl, but I'm just covering my favourite vinyl LPs that I've got. And they are all really good because I obviously tend to buy the, you know, buy them in vinyl when you really like it. So there you go. Thanks for watching, and please come back to the next one when I do that, hopefully in the next week. So cheers.